Centrifugal compressors accelerates the velocity of the gases. That means it increases the kinetic energy, which is then converted into pressure as the air flow leaves the volute and enters the discharge pipe. Here we know the first law of thermodynamics. Energy can be converted from one form to another. It cannot be destroyed, cannot be created. So conversion part is very important here. Now we will give electrical energy to the impeller. Fine. That means the electrical energy is converted into mechanical energy, and that mechanical energy is imparted to the fluid or air, whatever fluid is passing through this impeller, and that increases. Imparting that means that mechanical energy is converted into kinetic energy. Again, this kinetic energy is converted back to pressure using the diffusers. That is the idea. Got it? So once again I will tell you, the energy is always converted from one form to another and everything is accounted. Now electrical energy is converted into mechanical energy, and that mechanical energy is given to or it is converted to the kinetic energy of the fluid, and that kinetic energy is again converted to the pressure of that fluid. So how it happens, we will see. Now this this centrifugal compressor deliver much higher flow rates than positive displacement compressors, and it is used for low pressure ratios, that is less than 4:1. If the pressure ratio with a larger unit, then we will prefer axial flow compressors, and it usually operates at speed of greater than 3000 rpm, and the length of the centrifugal compressor is small, and even if the atmosphere or the fluid that is passing through that compressor is contaminated, it does not affect the performance of that. And the disadvantage is it has got larger frontal area. Even though the length is small, the frontal area is bigger, and the lower maximum efficiency. And we will see what are the basic components of this centrifugal compressor. One is impellers and second one is vanes. Impeller means I will show you in the figure, and vanes are there: volutes, suction eyes, discharge lines, diffuser plates, seals, shaft and casing. Now suction vane tip, part of the impeller vane that comes into contact with air at first, and discharge vane tips, that is a part of impeller vane that comes into contact with air at last. Now what are the applications, we will see. Most well-known centrifugal compressor applications are gas turbines and turbochargers. Either or both axial and centrifugal compressors are used to provide compressed air to modern gas turbines which operate on Brayton cycle, which is of interest in the next module. The types of gas turbines that most often include centrifugal compressors include turboshaft, turboprop, auxiliary power units and micro turbines. So in all these engines, the centrifugal compressors are used. Centrifugal compressors used in conjunction with reciprocating internal combustion engines are known as turbochargers. If driven by the engine's exhaust gas, if the compressor is driven by using the help of engine's exhaust gas, then it is called as turbochargers, and it is also called as turbo superchargers if it is directly coupled with the engine. If the compressor is directly coupled with the engine, then it is called as superchargers. Now you can see the figures in this slide. Here on the topmost figure, this is the volute casing. It has a spiral or shape. Okay, now this is impeller wheel. Okay, this is impeller actually, and this is actually the impeller, we call it as vanes, and this is the intake pipe, suction pipe, and this is the delivery or exhaust pipe. So here some refrigerant is used here. Now this is the volute casing. Okay, we call it as scroll or something like this, like that. So see the shape of this scroll. We will discuss it in the next slide. Now here also you can see the same thing, the cross section of that. Here you can see the blades or veins. This is the compressor. Fine. Now here also you can see this is compressor, centrifugal impeller or compressor, and here it is the combustion chamber where this compressed air is fed into this one I think, this one, combustion chamber. And this combustion chamber, by using this combustion chamber, exhaust gases are passed through the nozzle and through the turbines also. This turbine make use of this combustion gases, and it is coupled with the centrifugal compressor, and the part of work is given to this centrifugal compressor. That's it. Now we will see the parts. We have inlet. The inlet to the centrifugal compressor is typically a simple pipe. It may include features such as valve, stationary vanes, or airfoils used to help swell the flow, and both pressure and temperature instrumentations. So stationary vanes are there, or aerofoils will be there fitted in the inlet. It helps to swell the flow. It will help the fluid flow, and it will help to swell which is passing to the impeller blades. Now centrifugal impeller is the very key component of that. Okay, that makes a compressor centrifugal is the centrifugal impeller. So it comes because of the centrifugal action, we call it as centrifugal impeller of the centrifugal action of the impeller. It is the impeller's rotating set of vanes or blades that gradually raises the energy of the working gas. This is identical to an axial compressor with the exception, okay, just leave that. In many modern high efficiency centrifugal compressors, the gas exiting the compressor is traveling near the speed of sound. Note that. Impellers are designed in many configurations, including open or visible blades, covered or shrouded with splitters. Most modern high efficiency impellers use backsweep in the blade shape. Impellers, Euler's pump and turbine equation plays an important role in understanding impeller performance. So looking at all these points will be covered looking at these figures. So here this is turbocharger, what we have seen in the earlier slide. So exhaust gas from engine is there, and it is passed to this turbine. This is turbine, and this turbine axle is coupled with the centrifugal compressor, and using the whatever work is produced by this turbine, that is given to the compressor, and air is coming onto the to the eye of this compressor, and again it compresses that air by using the work of this turbine and is fed to the engine. So this is turbocharger, and you see these types. Open impeller, here you can see there are two discs up and downside, and here you can see some vanes. So this whole thing is called as impeller, and this is actually a vane, and there are two discs, that is it is shrouded impeller, okay, or covered, fully covered you can say. And there are other impellers where there will be only one disc on one side, then it is called a semi-open. This is closed one, and here you see this is fully open impeller. There are no disc here. You can see that the impeller. Okay, now this is the full length splitter impeller type of impeller. So there are so many types of impeller. Basically we call it as open, semi-open, and closed impeller. Now you can see the forward swept and backward swept impeller. So using some other figure I will show you. Here you can see the shape of this impeller. This is radial vanes. This is called as backward vane. Here the direction of motion of this blade is clockwise. Okay, and this backward vane, you can see the shape. This is leaned towards back, that is just opposite to the direction of the direction of motion of this vein. Now here you can see this is forward veins and this is lean towards the direction of motion of the blade, and here also the direction of motion of the blade is clockwise, in the clockwise direction. Here the same thing is explained in a different way. You can see the direction of motion of the blade in the anti-clockwise direction, and if it is lean towards the direction of motion of this blade, this is called as forward swept. And if it is just opposite to the direction of motion of this blade, then it is called as back swept blades. The next part is diffuser, that the next key component to the simple centrifugal compressor. Downstream of the impeller, the flow path. Okay, after impeller, the fluid will flow through this diffuser. It is the diffuser's responsibility to convert the kinetic energy, high velocity of the gas, into pressure by gradually slowing it or diffusing the gas velocity. Diffusers can be vaneless, vaned, or alternating combination. Hybrid versions of vane diffusers include wedge channel and pipe diffusers. There are turbocharger applications that benefit, just leave it. So here, coming back to this figure, this is the impeller blades. You can see the shape of this impeller blade. Here the area is lesser and here the area is bigger. And again you can see this is the diffuser, which may not be rotating, and the after impeller, when it is rotating, the fluid will pass through this diffuser. Here also the same thing, the area is lesser here and area is bigger at this portion. Now you can see the mass conservation equation, rho 1 A1 V1 is equal to rho 2 A2 rho 2 A2 V2. Now if density is constant, A1 V1 is equal to A2 V2, that is AV is equal to constant. That means when area increases, the velocity decreases. Fine. Now here also the pressure increase will take place. How? When area is increasing, the velocity will decrease, and using the Bernoulli's equation, P by rho or PV plus half V square plus GZ is equal to constant. Okay, by Bernoulli's equation, the pressure, the flow energy plus kinetic energy plus the potential energy is constant. Now using the area, what happens to the velocity? Velocity increases. When velocity decreases here. Fine. Here you can see the impeller. So by using that, the area is increasing here. Because of that, the velocity decreases. When velocity decreases, the pressure increases by the Bernoulli's equation. Once again I will tell you, the A1 V1 is equal to A2 V2. So here the area is increasing. When area increases, velocity decreases by A1 AV is equal to constant. Now when velocity is decreasing, pressure, by using Bernoulli's equation, pressure will increase. So again the same thing happens here, but because of centrifugal action, that is only half of that pressure increase takes place here and half of the pressure increase takes place in the diffuser. Okay, that is what exactly happening in the here. Now collector or casing. The collector of a centrifugal compressor can take many shapes and forms. When the diffuser discharges into a large empty chamber, the collector may be termed a plenum. When the diffuser discharges into a device that looks somewhat like a snail shell, a bull's horn, or a French horn, the collector is likely to be termed as volute or scroll. As the name implies, a collector's purpose is to gather the flow from the diffuser discharge annulus and delivers this flow to the downstream pipe. Either the collector or the pipe may also contain valves and instrumentation to control the compressor. So casing or collector we have already seen in this figure. So this can be the collector, this outermost part, or here you can see this can be the casing or outermost part, and the plenum or scroll or volute casing, everything we can call different names for that. So that's it for the collector. Now we will see the analysis part of this. The velocity encountered in the centrifugal compressor are very large. Therefore, total head quantities should be considered while analyzing centrifugal compressor. So what it means is total head quantities, that is the stagnation pressure. So we will come to that. Consider a horizontal passage of varying area through which air is flowing. Applying steady flow equation to the system, we get this equation. So I'll show you on a paint. We would have already studied in thermodynamics about first law of thermodynamics, or energy balance, that is Q in minus Q out plus W in minus W out plus M. Along with this mass, there will be three energies, that is PV plus 1 by 2 V square plus GZ, and this is mass flow rate that is coming in to the control volume minus of M out PV, that is mass, whatever energy, these three energies will be there, whatever energy that is going out of the control volume, that is half V square plus GZ is equal to dE system or control volume by time. So this is the rate of change of energy of the control volume or the system. That can be in terms of internal energy, kinetic energy, or potential energy, or whatever energy is. Now you see, whenever we are concerned with a hot gas, then the internal energy also will come into picture. So here, instead of this PV, you have to add its internal energy also. So if the fluid is hot, you say, if it is hydraulic, if it is water, then hydraulic turbines, then it may not be, will not be concerned about the temperature of that fluid. But whenever we deal with gas turbine engines, then the fluid will be hot. So this U plus PV will be there. Here also U plus PV will be there. So you know this U plus PV, that is internal energy plus the flow energy. This PV is flow energy, means the energy that is needed for a fluid to maintain its flow. That is the flow energy, or we call many times pressure energy also. Okay, the flow energy is the correct word. So to maintain the flow of energy, flow of the fluid along any conduit or any pipe, then this force comes into picture, or pressure comes into picture, that is the flow energy. This is the internal energy because of its temperature, this is the kinetic energy because of its velocity, and this is because of the height difference of this fluid. So if it is flowing in this way, this data, if you consider this as datum, and this is the height through which the fluid has flown, so it has got a potential energy also. Now coming back to the slide. Okay, one more thing, if you combine these both things, the internal energy and the flow energy, this is something called as enthalpy. You would have already studied this in thermodynamics, still just to brush up. Now you see, now just remember this one, this is minus of W out, this is W in, which is positive, this is Q out. So depending on the physics, depending on the system in our hand, this can be reduced to a different equation. So same thing we will do here. This is compressor, this is a compressor. So heat input is not there and work is not producing, that is work output is not there, but work in is there. Now work in is in the leftmost side, it was in the left side, that was a positive thing, and here in general they have taken it in W. Here this W means it was minus of W out here, so they have taken it the rightmost side. This is actually work that is given in. and this is the Q that is given in, both are 0 here. For 1 kilogram of air flow, no external heat transfer and work done, the expansion becomes U1 plus P1 V1 plus V1 square by 2 is equal to U2 plus P2 V2 plus V2 square by 2, the same energy equation. Okay, now work in is there, so we will consider that. Now along with the flowing fluid, this much energy is there. Okay, so this is the energy that is associated with fluid flowing in, this is the energy associated with the fluid flowing out. Now U is the internal energy, V is, it is specific volume actually, not volume, specific volume. P is the pressure, V velocity, H is the enthalpy, Cp is the specific heat at constant pressure. This specific heat at constant pressure consists of internal energy as well as the flow energy. So Cp dt will be exactly the enthalpy only. So you would have studied everything in the thermodynamics class. Q is the heat and W is the work transfer, or Q is the heat transfer rate for heat transfer. Now this H1 plus V1 square by 2, U1 plus P1 V1 is equal to H1, and there is no datum difference, so GZ1 is equal to GZ2, so that can be cancelled. And Cp, again this Cpt1, that means H is equal to Cpt, or delta H is equal to Cp dt, and H1 is equal to Cpt1 plus V1 square by 2, and that is equal to H2 corresponds to Cpt2 plus V2 square by 2. That means Cpt plus V square by 2 is equal to constant. So just understand that much. And here the T is the static temperature measured by thermometer when the thermometer is moving at the air velocity. Understood? T is the static temperature measured by the thermometer when the thermometer is moving at the air velocity. If moving air is brought to rest under reversible condition, total kinetic energy of the air is converted into U, further heat energy, increasing the temperature and pressure of the air. This temperature and pressure of the air is known as stagnation, or total head temperature and pressure is denoted by 0. It is better to read 0 because the flowing fluid is what we have done. The flowing fluid is brought to rest, so that kinetic energy is there already. The kinetic energy is there. That kinetic energy will be converted into its internal energy, or it increases its temperature, and that temperature is actually denoted by TO or T0. Fine, T0. That's what we understood from this paragraph. This Cpt plus V square by 2 is equal to Cpt0. Fine, Cpt plus V square. This V square by 2 will be converted to this Cpt. Then this will, or this kinetic energy is converted to or it will increase the temperature of, or it is called as total head. Temperature as well as pressure also will get increased. And if I convert this velocity into this temperature, the temperature will get to increase. That is actually denoted by T0. See, if you take it to the left hand side, this T0 minus T is equal to V square by 2Cp. Now you take this Cp here, and Cpt is H, as this is T0, this is H0 minus this Cpt is there, then that is H, that is equal to V square by 2, and this is the relation for your adiabatic process, okay, or polytropic process that we have already seen in the earlier classes in the reciprocating compressor. So remember this, T0 by T is equal to P0 by P gamma minus 1 by gamma, just opposite, or P0 by P is equal to T0 by T gamma by gamma minus 1. Now come to this figure. Before that I will read this one. Ideal reversible adiabatic process is called isentropic process, that is S equal to constant. That is, internally reversible adiabatic process is called isentropic process. Internally reversible means the process is very slow. There is no internal friction between the fluid or between the surface of the system and the fluid. There is no increase of heat because of friction. It is a slow, very slow process. Internal reversibility is not there. And adiabatic process means there is no heat exchange between the surrounding and the system. That means here there is no heat transfer between the surrounding and the system, and it is actually external reversibility. And externally and internally reversible process is called isentropic process, or internally reversible adiabatic process is called isentropic process. So S is equal to constant. You can see the figure here. This is the isentropic process. This is S in the x-axis. So this is the entropy is not changing. So this is the isentropic process. But during the adiabatic compression in a rotary compressor, there is friction between molecules of air and between air and the blades passages, eddies formation and shocks at the entry and exit. These factors cause internal generation of heat, and consequently the maximum temperature reached would be more than that for adiabatic compression. So T01 to T02, you see T01 to T02. This increase in temperature is just because of this thing. Which one? During the adiabatic compression rotary, there is a friction between the molecules of air and between air and blade passages, eddies formation and shocks at entry. Everything adds up the temperature, or you can say, it is better to say that you have already studied the idea of stagnation temperature. The same thing applies here. This is the temperature T1 and this is T01. This is actually because of this stagnation. You can call it as a stagnation temperature. Okay, 0, 1. This is because of the velocity. See here, they have already seen written it here. This is P2 and this is P02, and this is because of V square by 2. This change is because of V square by 2. That is, this velocity is changed to pressure or temperature. Understood? So the temperature as well as pressure is also increased. So temperature is changed from T1 to T02 because of this. This is a stagnation temperature, and here also this is the P2 and this is P02, or this is T2 or this is T02, and this is actually stagnation temperature here. So here you can see T2 and T02. This is the actual process. Actually, this is not isentropic process. Actually, the curve is like this. So if we consider P1 and P2, this is the curve, and if I consider the stagnation pressure or stagnation condition, this will be T01 to T02. Now again, if you consider it as an isentropic process, this will be T1 to T2 dash, or if I consider the stagnation property, this will be T01 to T02 dash. That much you should understand from this figure. So now don't read this part, you will get confused. Now whatever increase of temperature here in this part, you see this T2 dash and T02. This is bigger than this part, this T2 dash. This is just because of the reversibility. Okay, this increases because of because this is not internally reversible adiabatic process. That is irreversible process. That is by the temperature is increased, or the P2 is increased. Okay. So if you take out this much of increase of temperature away, if you take that through the casing, then it is called actually called as it will approximate to isothermal process. So we don't discuss it here, just leave that. So we have studied three types of, one is polytropic process, what is isothermal process, and other one is isentropic process. So this is the actual process which is not isentropic, or you can call it as the actual process, and this is the isentropic process. We are concerned with these two only. Now you see isentropic efficiency, the ratio of isentropic temperature rise to actual temperature rise, or the ratio of isentropic to actual compressor work is the isentropic efficiency. Here in this compressor, when we are giving energy to the compressor, so what is our aim? Our aim is to give optimum amount of energy. We are giving that, right? So we have to give optimum amount of energy to the compressor. Fine. Now if it is, so this can be an ideal process with which we can compare the actual one, and so that means there is a scope of improvement to this point, or we can approximate, or we can, every time there is a room for improvement of this centrifugal compressor by using thermodynamic analysis or some another way. So this can be considered as an ideal process with which we can compare the actual process, and we can always try to approach this ideal one. That means when we give in work here, this will be more and this will be less. So you can be, because of that you can always, so there is a loss actually, so you can define an efficiency there, that is isentropic efficiency. See, the isentropic work is more and isentropic work is lesser and actual work is more. So because of that we can compare these two quantities, and this is called isentropic efficiency. In turbine it will be just opposite, because we are getting work and we need more work out of it. We should get more work out of it. So the work, when it happens isentropically, that will be more, and that comes in the denominator, and the actual work will be coming in, which is lesser, that will be coming in the numerator. In the compressor this will be just opposite. The isentropic work is lesser, so it is coming in the numerator, and actual work that given is more, that comes in the denominator. So you see here, this is T, what is the work here? This is T02 minus T01, T02 dash minus T01. So this is isentropic work, and this is actual work, T02 minus T01. Got it? Or you say, if you are not concerning with the stagnation properties, this is T2 dash minus T1, T2 dash minus T1, and this is T2 minus T1. And actually it is actually Cp will be constant, that is why you can write it in this way. This is actually T2 Cp T02 dash minus T01 by Cp T02 minus T01, which we have already derived here in the earlier slide. So this is Cp. So okay, I will show you in the next slide. Okay, here it is. So there we did not consider the work there. Here in the, you can read it, the Cp T1 plus V1 square by 2, this is the energy that is given in, and this is equal to Cp T2 plus V2 square by 2 minus W. So here W in the left hand side, W in minus W out was there, and W out is not there because compressor is not producing any work, but positive W in was there. So I have to this W in to the right hand side, and that becomes minus W. This is work that we have given in. Now this W is equal to Cp T02 minus T01. See, if I consider the stagnation properties, the Cp T1 and Cp T2 will become Cp T01, and this become T02, because this stagnation temperature is converted to, this kinetic energy is converted to stagnation temperature. Instead of the static temperature, it is converted into stagnation temperature. Here also the same thing happens, and this will, we can cancel these two, and this W is equal to Cp T02 minus T01. So thus work input is the product of specific heat at constant pressure and temperature rise for both adiabatic and isentropic process. Now in this figure I will explain that the fluid is entering into the compressor and at P1 or at temperature T1, and in the impeller it passes through this impeller, and the pressure is increased till this point. So I already told you pressure is always also increasing in the impeller, as well as the velocity also increases steeply. Okay, velocity is increased in the impeller, and in the diffuser this pressure is increased in this way. See, P2 to P3. So half of the pressure is increased in the impeller and half of the pressure is increased in the diffuser also. And understand, this velocity is increased in the impeller, kinetic energy is imparted to the fluid, and in the diffuser you can see the velocity is gradually decreasing, and because this decrease in velocity is converted to the pressure. So that is this one also you should remember this figure. Okay, that is the thing given in this paragraph. Now we will come to the velocity diagram. Here the velocity, the absolute velocity in the radial is in the radial direction, and you see this is the absolute velocity, and you see this is the impeller or the vane, and the relative velocity should be tangent to the tip of this impeller so that there is no shocks. And this is the direction of this impeller is rotating in the anti-clockwise direction. So this is the direction of motion of the blade u1, and this completes the vector diagram. So I will draw it. See, this was the blade velocity, and if radially outwards, that is the flow velocity or absolute velocity, not flow. Okay, flow, actually this flow velocity and absolute velocity is same here. There is no component for this relative velocity. Now if I close it, this is my relative velocity Vr1. So this comes at the arrowhead of this tail of this one. That means, see, this is the arrowhead and tail of the relative velocity comes here. So I can write it u1 plus Vr1 is equal to, so this one is the closing one, closing vector. So this is V1. Actually what is that? Vr1 is equal to V1 minus u1. Okay, so this is how you have to draw the velocity triangle. And in the outermost part you can see this is the absolute velocity, and this is actually the blade angle. So this is beta 1 here, and the absolute velocity and the blade velocity, between that you have the alpha 1, the exit angle of the guide vane or inlet angle of the guide vane. So guide vane is different thing. This is the guide vane. What is the function of guide vane? Guide vane helps for the absolute velocity flow into this impeller, so that the relative velocity is tangent to the impeller. So this is guide blade angle alpha 1. This is the impeller blade angle beta 1. Here you can see the relative velocity is tangent to that. Now it is exiting from the impeller in the tangential direction. So the relative velocity Vr2 is here. And okay, here it was not the component of relative velocity. Component of absolute velocity is nothing. So Vw1 is 0. Here you can see the component of V2 is in this direction. That is flow velocity or world velocity Vw2, and this component is flow velocity Vf2. I will draw it. The absolute velocity is in this direction. This is V2, and this is our Vr2, and this is the blade velocity in this direction, in the anti-clockwise direction. So looking at this one, this is u2, Vr2, the head of this vector is here and the tail of this vector u2 vector is here. So I can write vr2 plus u2 is equal to v2. That means vr2 is equal to v2 minus u2. Now see, v2 is resolved into two components. One is in this direction, which is called as flow velocity vf2, and other one is in this direction. So see this direction, that is this one, this much part is, this is actually u2, this much part is u2, this is vw2 in this direction. Understood? Now velocity triangle you would have understood. These are all the same thing what we have learned in the hydraulic turbines, so I am not repeating it. It assumes that the entry of the air is axial, the same thing whatever I have told you, the same thing is explained here. You can just read it out. Now the centrifugal the work done by the impeller by Euler's equation. So we have the blade velocity triangles. Now using that, you have already seen this equation. W is equal to, I am not going into the derivation of this equation, we have already done it by using Newton's second law. So W is equal to Vw2 U2 minus Vw1 U1. So actually the mass flow rate will be there. So per mass flow rate I am writing Vw2 U2 minus Vw1 U1, and that is equal to, we have already seen, H02 minus H01, or that is equal to Cp T02 minus T01. And if the working fluid enters radially, Vw1 is equal to 0, we have already seen. Using the inlet and outlet velocity triangles, we can write W is equal to V2 square minus V1 square by 2 plus VR2 minus VR2 square by 2 plus U2 square minus U1 square by 2. So there are changes of these velocities. The first term means that there is increase in kinetic energy of 1 kilogram of working fluid in impeller that has converted into pressure energy into diffuser. So because of this velocity change, absolute velocity change in the impeller, there is a conversion of this kinetic energy into pressure energy. That is the first term. Second one, this is again the pressure rise only. This is the pressure rise because of in impeller only due to the relative velocity changes. So due to diffusion action, as relative velocity decreases from inlet to the outlet. Here also there is a change from the blade velocity from the inlet and outlet. So because of that blade velocity change, again the pressure rises happens in the blade also in the impeller due to centrifugal action as working fluid enters at a lower diameter and comes out at a higher diameter. Because of diameter difference, that the speed is actually that tangential velocity is different. Now the power required per impeller for m kilogram of airflow in 1 second is equal to, we just multiply it with mass flow rate, and already seen that Vw1 is equal to 0. So m dot Vw2 U2 by 1000 just to add this kilo here. If the blade is radial, ideal case Vw2 is equal to U2, and this W will become V2 square. Since the air cannot leave the impeller at a velocity greater than impeller tip velocity, the maximum work supplied per kilogram of air per second is given by the above equation. Now consider the steady flow energy equation at the inlet and outlet of the impeller, assuming the heat transfer during the flow of air through the impeller is 0, that is adiabatic. H1 plus V1 square by 2 plus W is equal to H2 plus V2, that is adiabatic means that it is actually isentropic process only, right? The H1 plus V1 square by 2 plus W is equal to H2 plus V2 square by 2. So here this is W in only. Okay, so plus W. On the previous slide we have taken this W in on the right hand side, that is minus W, and this W is equal to H2 plus V2 square by 2. I have taken this whole term to the right side, so this one, and this what is H, that is CPT. So CPT I have taken CP outside, and this is T2, and I have divided this Cp here. This is v square v2 square by 2 Cp. Again the same thing happens here, and this is equal to Cp. So this T2 plus v square by 2 Cp, which is the kinetic energy part. Cp is there. Remember that v square, just not just v square v2 square by 2, but a Cp is also there, because here Cpt is h actually. So remember that. Now this term contains becomes the stagnation temperature here. So this is Cp T02 minus T01. Okay. Now this W is equal to, if I take this T01 outside, Cp T01, I have divided it both here. So T02 by T01 minus 1 is there, and Cp T01 into, you see what is T02. I have already shown you a relationship. I will write it again. P02 or T02 by T1 is equal to P02 by P1 all raised to gamma by gamma minus 1. So I have already shown you the equation here. So using that, so T01 by Cp T01, okay, T02 is T02 by T2 is equal to P02 by P2 gamma minus 1 by gamma. Here it is gamma minus, using some tricks you have to remember, please don't make mistake like this. So this is T02 by T1 is equal to TP, some names you can remember, that is gamma minus 1 by gamma. So using that equation, so T0 can be written as T2 P02 by P2 gamma minus 1 by gamma, and T01 can be written as T1 P01 by P1 gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1, and that is equal to TP T02, same thing, and this is P02 by P01 gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1, because this T2 by T1 and T2 by T1 and P1 by P2 gamma minus 1 by gamma, that will get cancelled out. So using the same relation, this is the same relation. So if you reverse it, you will get, you can just cancel out this equation. Okay, if you take this to this side, that means 1 will be there. So this will get cancelled out, automatically get cancelled out, and this is equal to Cp T01 P02 by P01 gamma minus 1 gamma minus 1, that is equal to Cp T01. This P02 by P01 is the pressure ratio based on stagnation pressure. Based on static pressure also you can define that, so the 0 will not be there then Cp T01 in the bracket the ratio, pressure ratio gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1. And in the most practical problem, V1 is equal to V2, therefore W is equal to V2 square, that is equal to Cp T01 Rp0 gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1. Now this W is equal to Cp, the same equations, Cp T1. This is in terms of static pressure. Okay, so this is in terms of stagnation pressure, this is in terms of static pressure. So I'll show it how it comes. So here the 2 will not be there, this P2 by P1, from same equation you can rewrite this equation, P2 by P1 equal to V2 square by Cp_T1 plus 1 gamma minus 1 by gamma, and this Rp is the pressure ratio based on the static pressure. So I will show you how it comes. So by energy equation we know that T1 plus V1 square by 2 plus W is equal to T2 plus V2 square by 2. Now this W is equal to, see, I consider here V1 is equal to V2. Okay, the absolute velocities are same, Now this and this will get cancelled out. Then this W will be equal to, actually this is not T1, H1. This is H2. W is equal to H2 minus H1, and this is equal to Cp T2 minus T1. Now I take this Cp, this implies Cp T2, T1 outside. So this will be T2 by T1 minus 1, and this is Cp T1, this is P2 by P1 gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1. The same equation. This W is equal to, same equation I have written here, Cp T1. So this will become Rp. This P2 by P1 will be the pressure ratio in terms of static pressure, gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1. Now see, this is the width of the blades of the impeller and diffuser. So mass flow rate is equal to volume of air flowing per second, that is volume flow rate, into rho. Actually it is rho. Here instead of rho they have used specific volume, that is volume per kilogram. That was the meter cube per kilogram, and if it is rho, this is kilogram per meter cube. That is what we have already studied. So mass flow rate is in this way also we can write it down. This is specific volume, the volume of air flowing per second by volume of air, volume of 1 kilogram of air. That is equal to 2 pi r. 2 pi r means, I will draw it and show you. This can be the radius. This is the width of this one, and I have calculated this 2 pi r, and the impeller blade will be like this. I have already shown you the hydraulic turbine somewhat like this. So the flow will be in this direction, right? So here in this direction. So if I consider this is 2 pi r1 into this area, so this breadth or width of this blade, so this will be this area. Okay, let's say I will go to the slide. So 2 pi r1, that is the circumference, into b1 width, that is the area, and the flow velocity, whatever velocity that is flowing. So there may be another blade also in this way. There may be another blade also. The flow will be through this one, and this is the width, and this was the area, this was the total area into the flow velocity, area into velocity, that is meter per second. So this is meter square into meter per second, which is volume flow rate. The same thing. So volume flow rate into by volume flow rate per specific volume is equal to 2 pi r1 b1 v1 by specific volume. So mass flow rate at the outlet is equal to 2 pi r2 b2 vf2 by specific volume v2. Now if there are n impeller blades, I will exclude this thickness of the blade. So that will be n into t. The thickness is reduced from this 2 pi r1, that area, and the equation becomes this thing for mass flow rate. Here again this is for the outlet one, and basically in general form we can write it in this way. Now you see the isentropic efficiency, what we have already seen from this figure. This is the isentropic process, this is the actual process, this is the pressure, inlet pressure, this is the outlet pressure, and this is the temperature at the inlet, stagnation temperature, this is the stagnation temperature at the outlet, and this is the stagnation temperature actual. Now coming to the isentropic work, this is T02, isentropic means the ideal one, T02 minus T01, or Cp T02 minus T01. The actual means T2 or T02. So T02 minus T01, Cp T02 minus T01, that is equal to Cp T2 dash minus T1 by Cp T2 minus T. Understand that this is the actual process, this is the ideal process. I am comparing this actual work and ideal work. Okay. Now this is equal to T2 Cp. I cancelled out if I consider it as same. Cp T2 dash minus T1 by T2 minus T1 is equal to T2 dash by T1 by T2 by T. So I take this T1 outside. So using pressure ratios also you can write down in this way. Now you see what is slip factor, the ratio of actual world component and the ideal world component, that is phi s is equal to Vw2 by U2, and slip is equal to just opposite U2 minus Vw2, and pressure coefficient phi p, that is ratio of isentropic work to Euler work, and this is phi p is equal to isentropic work to Euler work. Isentropic work is Cp T02 dash minus T01, and Euler work is U2 Vw2, and work factor or power input factor phi 2 is equal to U2 Vw2. This one work factor is U2 Euler equation only. At radial exit U2 will be equal to Vw2, then it will be Vw2 square. We will come to diffuser efficiency. Eta D is equal to P2 minus P1, that is P2 is the outlet condition of the pressure and P1 is the inlet condition of the pressure, divided by, this is W actually, that is weight density by 2g V1 square minus V2 square. Again the same thing, inlet velocity and outlet velocity of this diffuser, of the fluid through the diffuser. And this is not get confused with this diffuser and this one. This blade is actually impeller blades, backward curved blades, beta 2 less than 90 degrees. This is radial curved blades, B2 is equal to 90, and this is forward curved blades, B2 greater than 90 degrees. And you can see this figure, when mass flow rate increases, the pressure ratio for the backward one is decreasing and the radial one, that is constant, and the forward one, that is increasing actually. Now see, the efficiency of this backward curved blade is higher and the efficiency of the forward blade is lesser. Okay, that way. And this backward curved blades, actually this is not high head, this is low head or pressure ratio. This is actually ulta, they have written just ulta. So efficiency is higher for backward blades. Radial vane, high outlet velocity, manufactured easily and free from complex bending stress, high pressure ratio. So it has its own disadvantages as well as advantages. We don't discuss it here. Now the losses in centrifugal compressor, friction losses are due to both the skin friction and boundary layer separation. Skin friction is the friction between the casing and the fluid, and the boundary layer separation, it is both proportional to both V square and M square. And incident losses, during the off design conditions, the direction of relative velocity of fluid at the inlet does not match with the inlet blade angle. That means it is not tangential to the blade angle, and therefore the fluid cannot enter the blade passes smoothly by gliding along the blade surface. It is proportional to CdV square, where Cd is the drag coefficient. And you can see the figure here. This is when mass flow rate increases, this is the incident loss and this is the friction loss, and this is the sum of these both losses, and you can see the how it behaves. Selection of compressor geometries. Number of blades in impeller chosen by experiment corresponding to requirements. Usually experiments show that it varies from 18 to 22 for radial bladed diameter from 25 to 36. If the diameter is 25 to 36, then the blade will vary from 18 to 22. And blade angle, outlet angle influence the inlet angle. Usually inlet angle varies from 30 to 35 degrees. Impeller diameter, from this equation U2 is equal to pi d2 by n by 60. After knowing the tip diameter, the inlet diameter is calculated from the tip diameter ratio, which is d2 by t1 is equal to 1.622. So tip diameter is the outlet diameter of this impeller. And impeller width, if B1 and B2 are the blade width at the inlet and outlet of the impeller, neglecting the thickness of the blades, it is calculated by the previously said equation, that is M is equal to, here it is written as rho only, not divided by specific volume, pi d1 b1 vf1 rho 1 is equal to pi d2 b2 vf2 rho 2, and generally vf1 is equal to vf2. Now impeller material, forged or die casted of low silicon aluminum alloy.